Okay, folks, sorry about that. My camera was one mess and Samantha came and helped me with it. So I'm sorry that we disconnected and I'm glad that you're back. So I indicated as we began speaking a moment ago that perhaps this is the single most important session that I've done so far since getting involved with LevAI. And I reflect on the fact that I learned a number of years ago when I read a book called Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. He talked about the idea that sometimes we have to go backwards before we can go forwards. If you're adding a column of figures, we add 7 plus 7 and we get 16. Well, that's wrong, isn't it? And no matter what we add to the 16, it will never be right until we go back and correct whatever the error was. Sometimes before we can go forward, we have to go back. And here, I'm not really going to talk about correcting any errors, but I'm going to talk about going back and reflecting upon some of the things that I was taught in the very earliest part of my introduction to the micro enterprise world, to the home based business world. And I then want to reflect upon how we slash I, up until this point, have not put to good use and practice some of the things that I was taught in the very earliest days. And I want to help each of you put into practice those things. Because why? Because I would like you all to become more profitable. I'd like you to become more profitable more quickly. And I would like you to have a sense of absolute calm certainty that what we're doing is entirely right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a whiteboard. And I'm going to go all the way back to what was the beginning for me in the direct selling industry. This goes back to February 1st of 1990, not talking about my participation in childhood years, but talking instead about my participation in later years as an adult. I was at a point of impasse. I had just lost my job at Merrill Lynch for a variety of reasons. I should have lost my job and did. And I needed to redevelop income. I needed to redevelop it relatively quickly. But more importantly, I needed to develop an income stream that was equal in size to or larger than the income stream that I had just lost. And yes, there was urgency to it, but it was really the number. I had to get to a certain number, or I would have to start unwinding my lifestyle and not being able to afford to live in the same home, not being able to drive the same cars, all those kinds of things. And so I listened to the basic business presentation and then I listened to the basic training presentation. And then the gentleman who was teaching me, his name was Nathan. And Nathan asked me, Randy, what's the target? What you need to accomplish? And I told him the number that I needed to hit. And he said, well, Randy, what will be required for you to have the result you're looking for is you'll have to put to good use in your world what he called the power of the multiplier. Now, remember at that moment in time that I was not getting involved with LevAI. I was getting involved with a company many years ago that had a compensation plan design, which frankly today would probably never get traction and never find favor. But there were some positive things to it. Now, what I must do first is illustrate just the tiniest bit of how that comp plan works so that the chart that I will show you will make sense so that I can then juxtapose that information into what we currently do with LevAI and help you make strategies to cause the compensation plan to produce the outcomes that I believe you're probably looking for. And so in that particular environment all those years ago. This has nothing to do with our business. I'm only describing it so you'll come to understand. What I was told was that, first of all, what I had to do was create a personal group. And so inside this circle, here we have Randy. And I was told that the first thing I needed to do was create a personal group. And that personal group, there would be first these people that I enrolled myself. And I was told that I would only be able to get paid a commission on those that I had personally enrolled. I would not be able to get paid on those that were enrolled by others until a requirement had been met. And what was the requirement? The requirement was that I needed to build a group of users that added up to 3,000 CV points. Remember, we talked quite a bit about the fact that in our company, we don't do an artificial dilution from cash in to PV, BV, CV. And so this was, I needed to do 3,000 volume points. I apologize, that writing didn't look very well. I do 3,000 volume points. And in order to do those 3,000 volume points, I would need to probably do about $4,000 in business to get to 3,000 volume points. And I would need to do that. It would take however months it takes to first get this group together who would do 3,000 points. When that happened, I would then be able to submit what was called a letter of intent. And I would then need to go through 3 months of qualification, where this group again proved that it was not just a one off. It had to do those 3,000 volume points again in qualification month one, in qualification month two, and in qualification month three. That was what was required in order for me to be evidenced at the first leadership rank. It was called an executive. And so the first leadership rank required what? It required that however days, weeks, or month it took to produce $3,000 in volume, that there must be a minimum in that particular comp plan. There had to be a minimum of 5 personally enrolled members. And I needed to do 3,000 volume points in order to set the process in motion to become eligible to apply for a leadership rank of executive. I would submit a letter of intent, and then I would need to do 3,000 again, 3,000 again, 3,000 again. Once that happened, then I could get paid on these people, not just on those I had personally enrolled. And that would then set in motion a process where what? Where each of these people would be attempting to do the same thing, create that 3,000 volume points month after month. And so what it did was it created an environment where everyone that was presenting himself or herself as a leader, they all knew that they were responsible to create 3,000 volume points every month. If we didn't produce 3,000 volume points every month, we would not graduate and grow through the compensation plan, and our compensation would be limited only to those that we had personally enrolled. We could not get paid anything beyond that. Now, that was the front end of the compensation plan. And so let's take it a step further. Here you would see I would be responsible for 3,000 volume points, and every other person who likewise aspired to and ultimately accomplished that status. If they likewise wanted to be an executive, they had to do 3,000 points 1 month in order to set the ball in motion, and then 3,000 volume points 3 more months in a row. In other words, they had to accomplish 12,000 volume points before they would become a quote executive. And as an executive, now be eligible to be paid on other executive groups, where each of these were likewise doing those 3,000 volume points. And so that background, that illustration that I've shown you up until now, that's the knowledge that you need to have to get to what Nathan described to me as the power of the multiplier. And once you have come to that point of knowledge and understanding, then we can show how the concepts that I was taught all those years ago would be applicable to what we're doing today in LevAI with our product offering, our service offering, our subscription base, and with the compensation plan mechanism that we have. And so, and I wish right now that I could see all of your faces. I cannot in the screen share. All I can see is my whiteboard. I can't see each of you. I wish that you were here with me in this room, because probably right now, there's probably a question or two. I've probably managed to confuse one or two of you. Maybe I've managed to confuse all of you. I don't know. But then when Nathan asked me, he said, "So, Randy, what is the target? What do you need to accomplish?" I told him what the target was. He said, "Randy, you will not be able to hit a target of that size unless you put to work in your business the power of the multiplier." And he then taught me, he showed me the exact chart that I'm not going to draw for you. I saw this for the first time on February 9th of 1989. And when I saw this chart on February 9th of 1989, it was this chart that I said yes to. And everything that's happened in my career since then has been because I said yes to this chart and decided to put the power of the multiplier to work in my world. And what Nathan asked me was this question. He said, "Randy, are you willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes to find 12?" And I said, "Well, am I willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes to find 12 what?" And he said, "To find 12 who go through the process that I just described to you. They didn't just enroll, but they enrolled, they worked, they worked, they worked, they recruited, they enrolled, they recruited, they enrolled, they found customers, they went through it all, such that they had a group that did 3,000 volume points in a month. And then after that, maintained that 3,000 volume points for the next 3 months in a row." And he asked me the question, "Randy, are you willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes to find 12 people who will evidence leadership by doing what I just described to you?" Now, I will tell you that in the years that have gone by, I now put qualifiers. He said, "Randy, are you willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes?" He didn't ask me how important integrity would be in that process. He didn't ask me if I would limit what I was doing to telling the truth. So I will tell you that today I will not do whatever it takes for however long it takes to accomplish things. I will only do whatever it takes for however long it takes within the context of goodwill, integrity, subordinating my success to other people, and so on. Those things that I've learned over the years with added maturity. But then he said, "Randy, if you're willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes to find 12, 12 who do what? 12 who become responsible for the ongoing maintenance of that executive group, as it was recalled. Remember, each executive group would have a mandated 3,000 volume points. Then he said, on your very first generation, if you have 12 of those groups, those 12 times 3,000 will produce what? Those 12 times 3,000 would produce 36,000 volume points on my first generation. And he said I would get paid 5% of that. So that would be $1,800. And I thought, you know what, that's really pathetic. They're going to pay me $1,800 if I do whatever it takes for however long it takes. And he said, remember, Randy, this is the residual income that you're earning on generation one. You still have your non-breakaway group, as it was called, where you're getting paid on those 3,000 volume points that you personally bring into the business. On those points, you'll earn 9%. In fact, if it gets bigger, my personal group actually went to over 50,000 points per month, and that produced over $10,000 in monthly income on that group because I would get paid 14% of it. But at the outset, the question was, are you willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes to find 12 who will express leadership by becoming responsible for an ongoing 3,000 volume points? And in that particular compensation mechanism, the 3,000 volume points were mandated. It was not something that was optional. Either you did it or you're kind of squeezed out of the plan. And he said, remember, Randy, that $1,800 you'll receive is now because other persons have become the leader, not you. This is no longer you turning the wheel. This is someone who has gone through that process of doing 3,000 points once, then 3,000 points 3 more months in a row. They've shown that they have leadership capacities or they would not have done that. Your income then is quite secure and can even become permanent through their results. And so he said, don't scoff at $1,800. In fact, he said, Randy, you know the world, you've been a stockbroker. But do you today receive $1,800 in monthly dividends? No, I didn't. Do you today receive $1,800 in rent? No, I didn't. Do you today have $1,800 per month in any kind of residual income? No, I did not. And so he said, don't scoff at that number. Realize that's a kind of an important number. But then he said, if you do what I have described up until now, if you develop the skills and exercise the activities that result in you having a leadership group that proves itself by doing 3,000 volume points 4 months in a row, then he said, when you have 12 people who have done likewise, he didn't tell me it would be fast. He didn't tell me it would be easy. He said, when you have 12 people that you have enrolled who have done likewise, that will then set in motion the power of the multiplier. And he said, I don't know how long it will take you to find those 12. In fact, he said it took me, he was referring to himself, he said it took me quite a while. Maybe he said, you're better than me. Maybe he said, you'll be luckier than me. Maybe you'll work harder than me. And then he said, I doubt that, but maybe. But he said, if you're willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes, and now I would add to that within the context of goodwill and intent, then once you have established that 12th leadership, that 12th leader who is responsible for 3,000 volume points, that will set in motion the multiplier. And the way that he told me that it would work, he said that given 2 years, once I had established the 12, then he said, given 2 years, he said, one of the 12 will do the same thing. If you do whatever it takes for however long it takes to find 12 who are responsible for 3,000 volume points, one of the 12, he said, will do the same thing. And the other 11 combined will create 12 more. And so he said that would create 24 leadership groups. Remember, this 3,000 volume points. This is reflected by a group of people using the products and so on. That's not a person. That is a leader who is responsible for 3,000 volume points being done in his or her personal group. That was the math. That's what he's describing to me. Then he said, given 2 years, one of the 12 will do what you did. The other 11 combined will find 12 more. And that will then create 72,000 volume points on generation two. And he said that same 5% would pay. And so now you would have an added $3,600 in addition to the prior 1,800. And what he told me then, I believe is probably true today. He said, Randy, there are less than 2% of all people living in the United States of America who have a $5,400 per month ongoing residual income based upon somebody else's productivity. And so he said, don't discount these numbers, Randy. And he reminded me, you've been a successful stockbroker. You've been at Merrill Lynch for years, and you don't have $5,000 in ongoing residual income. What I'm providing for you, what I'm describing to you, is of profound importance. And it's not like something that you're going to accomplish continuing what you're doing. And then he said, given 2 more years after the 12 have found 24, given 2 years, two of the 24 will each find 12, and the other 22 combined would find 24 more. And so that would create 48 third generation groups, each being responsible for those 3,000 volume points. That would create $144,000 in volume. And my 5% payout would stay consistent. That would produce $7,200 in third generation income. And the reason that I drew that line right there is because that is where network marketing stopped for many, many, many years. Amway paid on three generations. Now, the incomes generated would be a little bit larger than I described because their required volume was more than those 3,000 volume points to be a direct, as it was called. It had to be 7,000. And so the income would be a little more than double what you're seeing here. So a person could make a nice income, $250,000 a year, by building an Amway business that would go three generations deep. But to attract real leadership, they needed to go further. That was why Amway distributors started selling the tape of the month, the tool business, and so on. And that was why, along the way, compensation plans, companies made the decision, right, wrong, or indifferent, to pay further. Many of the seeds of discontent that now exist in our industry, caused by products being priced to fund compensation plans, much of that happened because starting at about 1991, 89 to 91, network marketing companies, almost all in unison, said, we're going to pay on generations 4, 5, and 6. And in so doing, you can see what happens. Given 2 more years, 4 of the 48 would each find 12, the other 42 combined find 48, or the other 44 combined find 48 more. Now we have 96 groups, which do $288,000 in this same comp plan mandated business, and that's $14,400 per month. You can see that the income generated on just generation 4 was more than on generation 1, 2, and 3 combined. And so when network marketing companies started paying on generation 4, 5, and 6, that is when network marketing companies started pricing their products to meet the needs of the compensation plan, because each subsequent generation doubled the payout. And suddenly you couldn't do it offering a product that was priced to meet the need of the consumer. And so now, in large measure, what we're having to do is deleverage that throughout the industry, unwind the processes, which resulted in people paying prices that fund comp plans. That ship has sailed. That doesn't exist anymore. But moving on, Nathan told me that 2 more years, 8 of the 96 would find 12 each. The other 88 combined would find 96 more. And that would produce 192 groups here, which would do $576,000 in volume. And 5% of that would be $28,800 per month. And then he told me, and here's the part that so many people have missed as the industry has gone on, time has gone by. Way too many people have begun thinking of the direct selling industry as a fast, easy way to make money. That's not the way that it was proposed to me early on. I was taught that I would need to do whatever it takes first to develop a group that would do 3,000 volume points 4 months in a row. Well, that wasn't easy. That was hard, not easy. And it didn't happen immediately for most people. I was then taught that to really set the multiplier in place, I would need to enroll as many people as I had to find 12 who would likewise become responsible for those 3,000 volume points. And then I was taught that after I completed that process, that it would take 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years more. And suddenly on generation 6, I would have 384 groups, each of which were responsible for 3,000 volume points. That would create $1,520,000 in volume. And my royalty on that generation would be $57,600 per month. And that will all add up to $113,400 per month if I didn't work anymore. That is what I said yes to all of those years ago. Now, I want you all to know that this is not facetious. It is not guesswork. That multiplier has worked to almost perfection in my career, to almost perfection. I have unfortunately allowed some of the treasures in my life to go away. And one of the treasures would be a compensation plan report from the company that I was involved with called Rexel Showcase. Remember, I was shown that I could have $1,342,000 in volume on generation 6 if I followed that process I've just described to you. A couple of years in, Nu Skin got sued by the Federal Trade Commission. They were accused of being a pyramid. Nu Skin won that litigation, but I just didn't have time to wait. I couldn't wait for them to win. I had to become productive then. So I left and I got involved with a company called Rexel Showcase. And remember, Nathan taught me that I would need first to establish a principal group, a group that I was responsible for, and that if I didn't do those 3,000 volume points every month, then I would not be eligible to get paid on the result of the multiplier. And so that was the compensation plan mandated volume that I had to do. That was an absolute requirement. Um, as as time went on and I left Newskin, I got involved with a company called Rexall Showcase, and it had a similar compensation mechanism. I likewise had to be 12 liters wide. The compensation plan understood the tremendous value of working in depth. And so it actually paid not 5% on six generations, but it paid 5% on generation one, two, and three, then 7% on generation four, 8% on generation five, and 10% on generation six. The result was that I had bargained for $113,000 per month. That's what I said yes to. And it wound up being almost triple that, about $275,000 per month for a long, long time. Why? Because I was getting paid 10% on generation six. Okay, so I want you all to know the power of the multiplier is exactly accurate. It is not speculation. It's not a maybe. This is the way that it works. Now, if the company that we're involved with is flat, if it's just flat, it's not growing, it's just staying the same size, then setting the ball in motion of the multiplier be extraordinarily, extraordinarily difficult. Generally speaking, the company must be growing at a rate of between, I would say, a dead bare minimum of 8% per year, a more comfortable threshold being about 10 or 11% per year, in order for the multiplier to work. If the company's not growing, the company, not your group, if the company's not growing at that 8 to 10, 11%, it probably will take all of those 10 years and maybe more than that in order to create that block of volume that I've described. If, on the other hand, the company is growing dramatically, the pace of growth compresses the amount of time required to make it happen. And so I had opted into the idea of doing $1,152,000 on Generation 6 after 10 years. I got involved in a company called Rexall Showcase, and I was doing $1,300,000 in Generation 6 in 5 years. An amazing thing. How did that happen? It happened because the growth compressed the amount of time required to make it all play. Now, the reason that I chose to take you on that long, and I'm hoping not too boring walk down memory lane, is because I want to show you, not approximately, but I want to show you exactly how to put the power of the multiplier to work in our compensation plan, in our mechanism, in our method of doing business right now. And so behind me, you can see that I've drawn a little chart. And I can see now as I'm looking at my screen, you're going to have a hard time reading it. I'll pull this forward a little more and see if that helps or if it hurts. Here behind me, I have drawn this chart, and I'm going to describe to you what I have drawn. I have made up a comp plan designation. It's not in the comp plan document. Maybe it will be one day. I don't know. And by the way, I want to also describe to you that it's taken me from August 4th. August 4th was the day that I said yes to this being my future. And not something that I would try and not something that I might do, but that this would be my future. So I made that decision on August 4th. Had been wandering up towards that decision for a while, but on August 4th, I made that decision. Um, I'm wanting to compress the learning curve for each of you. Remember that this is a digital offering, it's not a product offering. It is a different kind of a compensation mechanism that I've been involved with before. I knew absolutely nothing about AI before getting here. I want to make your learning curve steeper than mine was and be accomplished more quickly. But it's taken me from August 4th until I would say the day before yesterday for me to have clarity in what exactly I must do. Notice I said I must do, not telling you what you must do, because I don't know. I don't know what your goals and objectives are. I don't know what you're trying to do. But I know exactly what I must do in order for this to become the kind of success that I want it to be. And what is that? I want it to be the single greatest success ever in my business career. That's what I want it to be. I've worked very, very hard over the course of my life to become the best version of me. I can say right now, I am the single best version of me that I've ever been. I'm hoping that tomorrow's version is a little bit better than today. But I've worked really, really hard to be the very best version of me. Given that I'm the best version of me, I would like to have the greatest results of my life. That would validate that idea. And so, in order for this to be the kind of an outcome that I want it to be, it has taken me from August 1st and August 4th until about 3 days ago. But no one was teaching me. I was poking and prodding and poking and prodding. I'm hoping now that a result of me teaching you that you can benefit from my poking and prodding and that it won't take you as long to arrive at a point of clarity as it has for me. And so you'll see up here, I've drawn a box. And up at the top of the box, what I've written is LQP. What is LQP? That is my own terminology. That is not a company compensation plan terminology. That is my own. And that stands for leadership qualified partner. We know that we have in our business, we have two methods where a person can join. They can be purely a member, and a member is one who is using the business, using LevAI for their business, not using it as a royalty generator, but using it for their business. I'll tell you what my impression is of a leadership qualified partner. And by the way, I'm really, really careful when I make this next statement because don't think that I misunderstand who I am and what I am. But as I was contemplating the message I delivered to you this morning, I was also I happen to be a Catholic, and I enjoy the Bible stories. Some people don't. I do. I happen to enjoy them, and one of the most memorable discourses of Jesus's ministry was what it was called the bread of life discourse. And after the bread of life, he taught people some things that they did not want to hear. They didn't want to hear it. And it says the crowd got smaller and smaller as they heard the message he was delivering. Some of you might not want to hear the message I'm going to deliver. I promise you it's a correct message. It's not a maybe. I promise you this is a correct message. So in my mind, what does it mean to be a leadership qualified partner? It means that one has become responsible for 1,000 volume points. Now, remember, that's one third of what I was taught many years ago. I was taught by Nathan all those years ago that I would need to become responsible for 3,000 volume points. And if I wasn't responsible for 3,000 volume points on a month after month after month basis, then in that case, the compensation plan would eliminate my ability to get paid beneath those people I had personally enrolled. Here, we don't have the compensation plan punitive nature of not allowing you to get paid beneath those that you personally enrolled. But I encourage you to pretend as though the comp plan absolutely required it, that it required it. And so, what do I propose? That a leadership qualified partner is responsible for 1,000 volume points among non partners, among members. In other words, I think that becoming a leadership qualified partner means that you have 10 personally enrolled members who are not seeking to access the compensation plan. Now, that's a completely different direction for me. My entire career has been about the business, the business, the business, supported by the product. But remember, it's always been about a product that was priced to meet the need of the compensation plan. And so, what a person was joining me for was to access the comp plan. That's why they were overpaying for the product. We are not, no one is overpaying for our product. In fact, I think people are underpaying for our product. The product is the star of the show. We go through the slide presentation the company presented. It says, Sundar Pichai says that it's more profound than fire or electricity or anything we've done in the past. That is only true, folks, if we are talking to customers. It is not more profound than fire and electricity, anything we've done in the past. If all of us are simply recruiting members who are recruiting partners, who are going to recruit partners, who are going to recruit partners, who are going to recruit partners, then we wind up with one recruiting one because each partner is standalone and they each are only responsible for $99 in monthly volume. That doesn't work. That simply doesn't work. And by the way, what does any business need? Let's separate ourselves from direct selling and anything we've ever done before. What does any business need? Customers, isn't that right? Any business. I can think of absolutely no business launching thinking, wow, I don't need any customers. That's completely insane, isn't it? That's part of the insanity that the direct selling industry has taught people for years, that it's not about customers, but it's about recruiting members. You've heard me describe it as engaging in a proved and predictable pattern of activities, which results in an ever expanding and potentially limitless web of what? What have I always called it? Internal consumers. Folks, this is not more profound than fire or electricity. This is not bigger than the Industrial Revolution if we're limiting our message to the 3.5% of planet Earth who have embraced direct selling. It is bigger than fire or electricity or anything we've done in the past. It is more profound. It is bigger, 10 times bigger than the Industrial Revolution. If we realize that it's not about just recruiting people who are going to recruit people who are going to recruit people, it is about recruiting people who are going to get customers. That's what it's about. It's about recruiting people who are going to get customers and who are going to be responsible for a substantial amount of customer volume. That's when it becomes more profound. And I have discovered, by the way, that when I talk with someone about utilizing LevAI as a business, it becomes a very long, drawn out conversation. I was with my friend Jim in Florida a couple of days ago, and he said, Randy, this is way too hard a decision. I mean, people, it's $99. This should be an absolute automatic decision. That's true if it's about the product. But if it's about the business, see now, We're talking to people about diverting their time, about investing time and energy in a business as opposed to simply utilizing a product for their business. If they're utilizing a product for their business, we're getting them more time because of the efficiency and effectiveness utilizing the tools in their business. If, on the other hand, we're introducing it as a business, now we're asking them to add more time to their workload, not take time away because they're still doing whatever they're doing in their business. And we're asking them to participate in the development of a LevAI business. It's completely backwards. And the industry has moved to a point where now we get to be the company that evidences the way that it really should have been done all the way along. We're offering a product that you cannot acquire elsewhere for less money. We're offering a product that I believe you'd have to spend quite a bit more money to acquire. And if you did acquire something that seemed on the surface to be similar, relative to that, all the apps would not be talking one to another. Yesterday, I enrolled a new member, not a partner. Yesterday, I'm sorry, it wasn't yesterday, it was the day before yesterday. I enrolled a new member, and that new member is a real estate agent. And we were able to identify $1,800 worth of subscriptions that he can now eliminate because he's using our product. I didn't talk to him, not a bit. I didn't say a word about the possibility of being an affiliate or of being a partner or of earning commissions on it. You see, if I talk to a person about the business, then I get all kinds of hesitations about them enrolling another person. When I talked to a person about the product, by the time he had completed his enrollment, he said it to me. He said, "So I notice you're talking to me. Are you an employee of the company or is there an affiliate opportunity here?" And I said, "Well, there's an affiliate opportunity here. We haven't talked about that." And he said, "Well, can I be an affiliate?" And I said, "Sure, you can. But what I would like you to do first is utilize the product and know that that product has value to you. And if you find the product has value to you, then being an affiliate would be an automatic, it would be obvious, and it would be easy for you to recruit. So sure, I'll be happy to help you become an affiliate right now if you want. My personal preference is that you just be a member for the first 30 days and see how this impacts your business. You'll then have a very, very powerful message delivered to others." And he agreed with that. Folks, this is a different mechanism for me. But what I really want, the very first thing that I want, so that I can prove to you the validity, is I will probably be the first one among us to have 10 members because that wasn't my objective until the day before yesterday. I have a candidate coming here to our home today at 3 o'clock. That candidate is not going to learn a darn thing about the affiliate program unless at the end he asks me about it. Why? Because I'm going to have those 10 personally enrolled members such that I am responsible for $1,000 per month. I'm going to do that in the shortest order. And then I'm going to show you guys how the power of the multiplier will work if we as a group decide to do similar. If it's not just me deciding to do that, but if we as a group decide to do similar, then we'll put the power of the multiplier to work on our behalf. And how would it work? Well, I've taken this block of volume and I've made this block of volume be reflective of the LevAI compensation plan. And we know that in the LevAI compensation plan, we can get paid on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 generations of volume. That's how far we can get paid. There's also an opportunity to get paid an infinity payout beneath that. And we know that in order to get paid on those 8 levels of volume, and in order to qualify for the top of the infinity payout, in order to qualify for the 4 generations of check match, we'll need to have 5 separate legs. And those 5 separate legs are each going to need to do $20,000 in volume. That is what will get us to the top of the plan. 5 legs, each doing $20,000 in volume. Now stop and ask yourself this simple question. If every time we bring a new person into the business, we tell them that part of becoming a leadership qualified partner, that's not a comp plan designation, that's a cultural designation that I'll begin using. You've seen I just started using it. In order for you to become a leadership qualified partner, the first task we have is for you to have 10 personally enrolled members, not partners, 10 personally enrolled members. That's the first step in making you a leadership qualified partner. Because now you see, now here are the things that have happened as a result of doing those 10 personal enrollments. What will have happened? Well, those 10 personal enrollments will each create $50 in what? In acquisition bonus. And so those 10 acquisition bonuses right there across the top, those 10 acquisition bonuses, what do they create? 10 acquisition, I'm sorry, I got this wrong. 10 is $500, right? $500. That's the 10 acquisition bonuses coming right out of the gate. And so the first thing that happened is the person became profitable immediately. The next thing that happened is in addition to those 10 acquisition bonuses right out of the gate, which makes this Oh, that's because I did five. That's why I did five. Okay, that's why. Because I'm only wanting you in the beginning. I'm just wanting you to enroll five. I want you to enroll five who become leadership qualified partners. And when we enroll five who become a leadership qualified partner, we will then earn $200. Excuse me, five times 50, $250. I'll get my math right up there. So we will have earned $250. It cost us $90 to enroll, and we are $99 to enroll, and we would have earned $250. So we're profitable coming out of the gate. The next thing that will happen is what? Now we will work to help each of these to the extent that they are working to help to do their own part. We can't do it for them. But our next task is what if I'm a leader? My next task is to help each one of these who have that stated objective get their $1,000 in customer volume, get their 10 customers. That is step number one for me. Remember, as I was taught by Nathan years ago, that is what sets the power of the multiplier in motion. Until and unless we do this, there is no power of the multiplier. It doesn't happen until and unless we do this. Once we have five personally enrolled, those five personally enrolled each have 10 customers. They're each responsible for $1,000 in business. Are you willing to do whatever it takes within the confines of goodwill and intent to enroll 10 customers? That becomes my message. To enroll 10 customers, that makes you eligible to begin participating in all of the compensation plan. And folks, this is my experience. When I talk to somebody about the product for the sake of the product, it's a one-step enrollment. A one-step enrollment. If I'm talking about the product as an income generator in the context of a direct selling company recruiting a team, then it becomes as long a process as it's ever been for me. That's the truth. People enrolled in the pre-market period in a matter of seconds, but they didn't place the order. They didn't do anything. It didn't matter. Whether it's a $99 order or a $10,000 order makes no difference. When it's a business decision takes contemplation, when in fact it is a decision to be a user of a product for their business. They've already decided to be in their business, and we can so easily identify how and why this product helps them. And so now on generation one, what will occur? Well, on generation one, now I've got one, two, three, four, five people who are each responsible for 1,000 volume points. And so now on generation one, times that 20%, that makes $1,000 a month. Residual income on generation one as a result of having only enrolled five and helped them become a leadership qualified partner. What if, on the other hand, these five, one, two, three, or five, if those five are each $100 individual subscriptions? Then you know the difference, don't you? Then instead of that being $1,000, it is $100. Folks, this is the most important message I can deliver to you. We can help people start making $1,000 per month in back end residual income right now. And I'll remind you of what Nathan told me all those years ago when I said $1,800, that's not that much. He said, Randy, very few people you know are earning $1,800 in back end reoccurring income right now. And remember, that required that I find 12 who each did $3,000 in business. Now I'm describing to you a process. We each need only find five who are responsible for $1,000 in business. And that responsibility can be met so much easier. Why? Because everybody, when we start talking to people about the product for the sake of the product, not for the royalty generating possibility, now is when we get access to everyone who uses a cell phone. Now is when we get access to everyone who uses the internet and everyone who uses a computer. When we're only recruiting inside the network marketing methodology of recruiting a person to recruit somebody, now, folks, I promise you, not only will this not be faster and easier, it'll be slower and harder because we're not doing thousand or two or $3,000 orders to get that great big bump up front. And you know what? That great big bump up front turns into what? It turns into a sharp decline on the back end. This is a better mechanism. But now here is what I will prove. I will prove, but I already know logically it'll work because the power of the multiplier has always worked for me. What I hadn't computed, what I hadn't figured out in my mind up until right now was how to make the power of the multiplier work in this business context, because we can't do it based on $99. We need to do it based upon a multiple thereof. And so the truth is this: I'm teaching each of you to make your multiplier based on 1,000. I'm going to make my own multiplier based on 3,000. I already know how to do that. But let's start out getting a bunch of people having a power of the multiplier working with a leadership group being developed that is responsible for 1,000 points apiece. Well, do whatever it takes for however long it takes to find five. And I can tell you what will happen. I am willing to compress the amount of time required here by quite a bit, because clearly finding five will not take as long as finding 12. And clearly finding 5 who are responsible for $1,000, that's a shorter task than finding 12 who are responsible for $3,000. And so this multiplier, I'm very comfortable saying that it's not 2 years after we find 5 until we find our 10, until they find their 10. It's more like 9 months. I mean, that's logical to me based upon the fact that we're looking for 5, not looking for 12, responsibility for 1,000 points, not a responsibility for 3,000 points. And finally, the fact that we're offering a product or service that people cannot buy elsewhere for less money and that everybody wants. Maybe the most important thing I can tell you, folks, shift your dialogue. If you're using the product to recruit other people who are going to recruit other people, your multiplier is not going to start to work. It's not. And because they're not being provided with $1,000 package to sell, it's not going to create the kind of income that people want fast enough to take the next step forward. You're not going to benefit in the global adoption of AI if all we talk with people about is recruiting other people who recruit other people who recruit other people. You'll benefit from the global adoption of AI when you become a conduit to other people's use of the product. And as a result of that proven success, then deliver the business message, which becomes automatic. You enroll 10 members, and some of those 10 are going to see the value right away. They'll ask you if they can become a partner. You want to recruit more easily, go get more members more easily. Something like 9 months. We don't know exactly how long. These 5 will find these 10. And when these find these 10, each of which are responsible for 1,000 volume points, now we have 10,000 volume points, which is $10,000 in cash on Gen 2. We have an ongoing $1,000 per month royalty on Gen 1. We add a $400 per month ongoing back end royalty on Gen 2. And then, given, I am guessing, let's just call it a year. I'm guessing that given about another year, these 10, having once we set this process in motion, create a duplicatable process, then I believe in something less than a year, these 10 will find these 20. That adds another $800 in back end residual income, given about a year. These 20 find these 40, and that's 1,600. And the multiplier plays out to 80,000 in volume on this generation, which is $3,200 in income, and then 160,000, and then 320, and then 840,000. It will take, if we continue to deliver a message that is a recruiter contacting a recruiter to contact a recruiter, then I believe we need to fully expect and anticipate a year, a year, a year, a year, a year, a year, a year. Just as Nathan taught me all those years ago that it was going to be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Well, now we're talking about 5, not 12. We're talking 1,000, not 3,000. We're talking about a product offering that appeals to everybody, not to a few. Maybe we can compress it even more, but I'm guessing that that's probably about what's logical. Now, remember that I stated that the pace of growth will determine how much we can compress the multiplier. Rapid growth compresses the multiplier. Flat line lengthens the multiplier. If the company's getting smaller, there is no multiplier. If in fact, let me rephrase that. It's not if, it is when. This is going to happen. I don't know who the participants will be. I don't know which participants will get off this session and say, but I'm not going to go and find customers. That's not what I'm going to do. I don't know what percentage are going to say, you know what, that's right. That's absolutely logical. That's right. And I'm going to be among the very first to become a leadership qualified partner. I'm going to go and get my customers. Folks, as I said, I think I enrolled a new member, not partner, the day before yesterday. We will see, but I'm absolutely confident that I will enroll a new member today at 3 o'clock. I cannot imagine that not happening because so far everyone I meet and talk with about the product for the sake of the product, they all enroll, all of them. And the process is a very, very, very short process. If I'm talking about the business, utilizing it as a royalty generating device, and I'm not going to go and enroll customers, then it becomes a very lengthy process, the same as it was a $10,000 purchase. That's the truth. And maybe even longer because I'm unable to illustrate how to generate income quickly enough to attract the kind of entrepreneur that I want, unless I'm illustrating what happens if we put real volume into the multiplier as opposed to our simple own activity membership. Okay, next what happens. So in the case that I just described to you, remember, I was shown a chart back in 1989 that said if I was willing to do however long it takes to find 12, that would then set in motion that multiplier, and I would earn $1,800 on Gen 1, and then 36 and 72, and on it went down to $113,400 per month. And so I want to illustrate for you now what this simple 5 wide multiplier, not a 12 wide multiplier, but what a 5 wide multiplier is with only 1,000 volume points per leadership qualified partner, as opposed to 3,000, as I was taught those years ago. And here's the way that it works. It will produce on Gen 1, 1,000, then 400, 800, 16, 32, 64, 12, 8, 25, 6. That adds up to $52,000 per month in unilevel payout. Now, folks, if you have that block of volume, if your block of volume is based not on a 1,000 point multiplier, because each participant has the task, that this is what we do. It's a cultural requirement that I'm going to be responsible for 1,000 volume points. I'm not simply going to be delivering a business message that I'm not acting upon. I am going to have my $1,000 in qualifying volume. Now, you see, imagine this block of volume is based on 100 volume points instead of being based upon 1,000 volume points. Instead of that saying $52,000 a month, that's 5,200. That's a pretty big difference, isn't it, folks? It's the difference in being able to attract a person who will use this as a primary income driver and one who will use it only as a secondary income driver. Big, big, big difference. And now let's continue that a little bit. I cannot accurately predict. This is just math, folks. This is plain math, 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 math. And it's absolutely 100% correct. This is just math. And so now you know exactly what would happen. What if we decided that we are every bit as capable as the leadership group that Nathan was building back all those years ago when he told me we're all responsible for 3,000 points? That's just the way it is. We're all responsible for 3,000 points. If you're part of this club, you're responsible for 3,000 points. That was the message. Well, then if we were all responsible for 3,000 points, then that would be $156,000 a month instead of being 52. That would be okay, wouldn't it? And so you get to decide, what do you want your multiplier to be based on? Do you want your multiplier to be based on $100? Do you want it to be based on 1,000? Do you want it to be based on something more than that? We get to decide. Right now, my objective is to simply set in motion a cascade of activities which results in the first handful of people having a multiplier based on 1,000. As soon as I've got the first handful of people acting upon that, then I'm going to go out and prove that we can do it with 3,000 as well. But what else happens? This part is pure math. It's an absolute, it's just math. This is the way it is. Coming down here, now it's not just math because we are so young as a company and so immature in terms of having volume run through the organization. I cannot accurately predict right now what the infinity payouts are going to be. I just can't. I need another month or two. I need to see volume run through the plan. We need to start seeing this kind of behavior and running this kind of behavior through the plan. All I can do right now is look at my actual commission report. And right now, my actual commission report shows that my infinity payout is right now, as we speak, almost exactly equal. And today I get 2 infinity payouts. I get an infinity payout at director, and I get the innovator infinity payout. I don't yet get the visionary or the legacy, whatever I think it's visionary legacy they're called. Those two components of the infinity payout for me right now are essentially equal to my unilevel payout. They're producing just almost the exact same amount. And so if I then look at this, if that remains true, and I don't know if it's going to or not, I don't. I personally believe the infinity payouts are going to become larger than the regular team commissions. That's what I think. But what I know right now is that they're producing almost the exact same thing for me. And so we would then have $52,000 in unilevel income. We would have an identical $52,000 in infinity payout. That's exactly how my comp looks right now. And then I believe this is the part that is most dramatically understated in our income right now, the check match. Right now, my check match is only 10% of my total check. That is absolutely because of the immaturity of our business. I believe that as this rolls out further, that check match should become the largest part of our income, but right now it's not. And so I'm reflecting it exactly as it is. If we were to set in motion a 5 wide times 1,000 point requirement multiplier, then that will create, based on what I'm seeing right now, the 52,000 is an absolute, that's simple math. The second 52,000 is if as the volume rolls out, it continues to be that infinity is equal to, not greater, not less than the team commission. I believe that infinity will be more, but I don't know. We'll find out next month. Does it go up? Does it go down? I'm virtually certain the check match becomes a much, much bigger part. But the multiplier that I said yes to on February 9th of 1989, The question was, Randy, are you willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes to become a leader that you'll evidence by doing 3,000 volume points in your own personal group 4 months in a row? That's what gets you in the club. Then he said, once you get in the club, to the extent that you're willing to do whatever it takes for however long it takes to find 12 people who do likewise, that will then set in motion the power of the multiplier. And he then told me that 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years later, I would be earning $113,400 per month. What I've just described to you is something that I believe will be shown to be absolutely accurate. I would love for it to be shown to be accurate and evidenced in a lot of people. I don't know if that's going to happen. It will be shown to be accurate among some. I want you to be among those who prove its accuracy. But now, instead of it being a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 year process, I believe that we compress that to something along the lines of 4 year process, because we're talking about 5 instead of 12. We're talking about 1,000 volume points instead of 3,000 volume points. And we're talking about a product that everybody wants and needs at a better price as opposed to a lower price. And so I think that we can compress it from 10 years down to 4. We're going to find out. But no matter how long it takes, the truth is that most of the people on this session have never made $109,000 per month and could not imagine life if it was that way. That is the way the multiplier will work. Now let your imagination run wide. What if we decide as an organization that, hey, you know what, culturally, there's absolutely no reason why after we've got our first $1,000 in customer volume in place, why could we not go do that again? Why couldn't we just go do that again? Because the subscription base goes on. These are customers, folks. These are not people who are requiring our leadership growth and helping them build organizations. These are customers. And once they're using the product to positive impact in their business, then if we have 10, why in the world could we not go and get another 10? And then just like that, the multiplier is based on 2,000 volume points. And having completed that task, why couldn't we go get another 10? And so then the question for each one of us simply becomes, how high is up and what is your goal and what is your objective? I want you all to know that what I've just described to you is the truth. It is accurate. This is the way that it works. And it's taken me up until now, it's taken me some period of time to arrive at a point where, and now I see that my screen share has stopped. I'm hoping you guys saw most of that for that period of time. Not sure. But I want you to know that what I've just described to you is the fact. It's not maybe how it works. It is exactly how it works. And just because my screen may not have been, oh, I don't need to show my screen because you guys are seeing this. Um, so my question for each one of you is here we just have this small group of people. Are you willing to be one of the early adopters? Are you willing to be one who says, yes, I'm going to have 10 personally enrolled members. I am going to be responsible for $1,000 in volume every month. I'm not just going to talk to people who are going to recruit, who are going to recruit, who are going to recruit. I instead am going to assemble a leadership group, giving people the very practical, pragmatic thought that we are in a business and a business needs customers. And I would ask each of you to query yourself right now. If a business needs customers, and that's logical, look at your business right now. Go to your screen. How many personally enrolled partners do you have? And compare that to how many personally enrolled members do you have? A member will not make their decision month after month to retain their activity based upon what their check is. A partner may very well make their decision as to stay active or not based upon their check, because the partner is not by definition using the product to grow their other business, whatever it is. This is not something that perhaps we should do. This is something that anyone who can see with clarity, anyone who's willing to simply open their eyes to the realities. The reality is that we must engage in a proved and predictable pattern of activities, which results in the creation of an ever expanding and potentially limitless customer base of the finest, best priced AI product in the marketplace today, creating a subscription base to provide ongoing royalty income, which can be as big as your imagination allows it to be. And it does not need to take a long time. But folks, plan on it taking a long time to generate a substantial income if you allow the multiplier to be based on a $99 entry. And if you then realize that that $99 entry was made by someone whose vision for the future is to recruit someone else, who's going to recruit someone else, who's going to recruit someone else. Completely different idea to enrolling a member who understands that part of building a business is to have a customer base and to help each create that customer base so that therefore we have the stability of income that is the logical outcome of one utilizing the product to successfully benefit the business that they're in. Okay, I have rambled on and on and on this morning, and my time is essentially spent. You will see me continuing aggressively down this path, continuing aggressively down the path of identifying who are the handfuls of early adopters who, with me, are going to become responsible for 1,000 volume points every month. And folks, we have a week left in this month. I will scream your name from the rooftops, and you'll be elevated to the highest leadership profile in this company when you become one of those who helps me begin the process of proving that everything that I just taught to you is accurate and is the process that will allow us to turn this into the outcome that we all want and that many of us need. God bless everybody. Have the best Sunday you've had yet, and let me know how I can help. See you along the way. Bye bye.